Mansplaining.
Oh
What's
yeah.
up? What's up? Welcome back. Welcome back. Christian, how you doing this week?
Oh great. Doing
Good, good. Good, good. That's good to hear. At least one of us
and
is.
yourself? Yeah, yeah.
I'll be all right though. I'm making it. I'm making it. You know, this is what happens when you get old, right? Like you just one thing after another. So today we're gonna talk about the big divorce. Because mommy and daddy are fighting.
Now
And now we have to deal with the fallout of Elon Musk and Trump and their feud that is going on online. And of course, anybody that's familiar with any kind of animalistic behavior realizes that when two alpha males start tangling horns, that this is the kind of thing that happens, right? Like either one of these guys at any point in time over the course of what we discussed today could just be like, you know what? I'm not going to engage. I'm just going to rise above. But that's not how guys like this do it. You know, that's not how billionaires settle their problems, right? So we got to get into it. But before we do, I have something I need to get off my chest. Geese. All right, geese are really starting to piss me off. And I don't know about you guys out there. I don't know where you live. I live in North Carolina, and I live in a nice neighborhood, nice quiet little neighborhood, Cary. And I swear I cannot even drive out of my neighborhood without getting assailed by flocks and flocks and flocks of geese. And I'm talking about they cross the road and then just stand in the middle of the road. And you can't hit them because of some stupid migratory bird act law that's supposed to protect birds that I
they're,
guess are endangered, but these
they're
are not
protesting
endangered.
immigration. They're protesting immigration laws, I think.
Yeah, I think that's that's what it
The
is.
migratory status. Yes.
This is it. This is their illegal geese. They're illegal geese. You
Yes.
know, and here's what I'm trying to say. If these were like toucans or something like that, okay, then they're rare, they're endangered. I wouldn't want to run over them. But there's like 400 of them in my neighborhood alone. They are not endangered. Like there's so many of these things, and you can't. And they know it. They must know what the law is. I think they read because they look at you as you're driving up, and they're like, huh? And they'll hiss at you to like. I'm like, what the hell's wrong? I'm in a 2-ton car.
It reminds me, my favorite scene in Home Alone 2, my wife's too, is there's a scene where he has to scare these pigeons, right? But they're near two pigeons, and and they are not being scared. They're like, what? Like he has to literally knock them before they'll move. Like there's no scaring near pigeons, and that's how entitled these geese are too. I actually read an article that in Rochester, I believe in Rochester, New York, there's a lake there, and they found that there was a particularly special breed of Canadian geese that
Okay.
was super endangered.
Okay.
And so they were doing all this stuff to protect them, but now they're not endangered anymore. Lots of them, and there's so many of them, they're actually a problem, right? So they're like, can we get these geese? Like, there's all things like, how do we deal with this geese problem? Like,
I mean, okay, at the food line where I go to get groceries, like it's right at the corner store. It's hard to explain, but there's like this little retaining wall right in front of the store, like little store, and like where people would normally plant plants or put decorations or something, right? And there's a goose that's just like hatched some eggs there, just sit there the whole time, and any single person that walks by gets snapped at,
yeah,
like all day. She just sits there, and her boyfriend or whatever
yeah, I mean,
parades around in the parking lot like a patrolman, and she just sits there, and every person that walks by, she hisses or They are so mean. They're
yeah.
so mean. They remind me of my ex-wife. Anyway, so uh, speaking of Home Alone 2, you know who else was in Home Alone 2 is Donald Trump.
Donald Trump.
And supposedly, they say, I don't know if this is actually true, but because I've never been in, Trump Towers myself. I've been by it a couple of times, but they say that in the movie, the Home Alone 2, he asks for directions and that Trump gives him the wrong directions, which I think it's just scripted or something. Like, I'm not sure that, I doubt that he really doesn't know where he's going
Yeah.
and is going to, but whatever. So Trump and Elon Musk. Where do we start? At the beginning. So let's start with this. Elon Musk and Trump have been bromancing for quite some time, right? They've had a good run, and Elon Musk contributed a considerable portion of his wealth to get the Republicans some motivation and some effort, some elective visibility, some suffrage, and um, I'm not sure exactly how much he spent, but he threw his money around quite a bit, holding contests and this and that, and lots of money directly towards the Republican Party, and went and helped individual races here and there, and Trump, so before we even get started, it's important to be cognizant of what both of these great men have done, right? So like we got to remember that we need to be grateful for what these great men have contributed. And Elon Musk is a one of a kind entrepreneur, one of a kind genius. Hey Tiffany, how you doing? Hey Queen, hey Arvin, welcome all aboard. And Trump, of course, is one of a kind as well, the leader of a movement, right? And and both of these men have done things that nobody else in the history of mankind has done. So before we even go forward, let's start.
They have large egos. They have large accomplishments.
Definitely.
Right? And people with big egos can be more interesting, more fun to be around. They can also, at times be a little bit off-putting, or types of things. But you put up with them when they produce, when they're doers, when they're people that don't just talk but they walk.
Exactly.
Right? You can put up with them. But
and
I think, and Elon Musk, his journey, right, and where he talked a lot about that he was kind of a leftist, center left or person, but really, became red pilled during the Biden administration, right? Seeing how the Democrats govern, and that their disconnect from reality and their very far left things pushed him. He said he stayed in the center, but the left just kept going, right? Biden's administration, whoever was running the show, was not just center left, but the most progressive, the most far left governance that we'd ever seen. And right, and the no deportation was that was their solution. They couldn't justify any deportation. They couldn't define what a woman was. All these kind of stuff, like super far left stuff. So he comes around and feels like, all right, the Republicans have to be the right.
Right.
And as with anyone sees, while the Republicans are better, Republicans are not perfect.
Nobody's perfect.
Politics, especially in America, is not a dictatorial thing. It's not like in other countries where when you're voting in office, now you have majorities and everything, and now you can pass things. No, there's still our republic is really meant to have change be a slow thing. And Elon, he wants immediate results. He's somebody who works really fast in his companies, right? It's very famous at Tesla. When people would report a software bug, they would want to turn around on that thing right away. So his attention span is not for hey, let's do this now. Like incremental change or a strategy of incremental change that of government is not how he wants to run things. And so that's the thing when you've got that type of let's go right now, short attention span, a brilliant person who's used to getting things done hits government, and it's very frustrating. And it was frustrating for Trump in his first term too. He was used as a businessman. Let's just do this. And be like, well, actually, the law says we've got to do it. We've got to go through all these other processes before we can do that. A lot of red tape.
Right. And you're saying Trump still struggles with that, to be fair, but he's learned some things. He's learned some things that he can get away with. Right. So it basically started out with, Elon's working for Trump, and Elon is in Doge, and he's doing a good job, and everything seems to be hunky dory.
Oh yeah.
And then the big beautiful bill starts being put into motion, and Elon Musk, I guess, takes a look at the big beautiful bill, and he doesn't like what he sees. Now, we'll get into some of the specifics of what he doesn't like, but basically he started criticizing it. And that is not really the way that Donald Trump does things, right? Like Donald Trump likes political loyalties to go in a certain direction, right? Basically for him, not in the opposite direction.
Not to make his life harder. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Especially because he's got enough on his plate, right? He's doing a million things, and this is, to be fair, and in Trump's defense, this is just his first stage, right? This is just like the first step in a long chain of a 4-year term that's going to be hard fought all 4 years, no matter what he does. And now whether or not this big beautiful bill does actually lead into additional steps that Elon Musk would like to see is something that we're all just going to have to kind of wait and see. I'm going to go ahead and throw this out there. I get the sense that with the political atmosphere, it's probably going to be something where they're going to be like, this is the first step. And then the next steps are just never going to come because nobody really in Congress or the Senate has an appetite to actually just start slashing the government. They kind of like,
yeah.
But
we talked about it on our line for those of you that are following us about entitlements and how hard it is for career politicians to have the courage to take on entitlement change, especially reducing their budgets or changing them as we know it. Is something they feel like gives too much ammo to their opponents, right?
Right.
But I think Elon, to come down on this, and my team Elon and my team Trump, I think Elon is a little bit too much focused as sort of a single issue person. Yes, the debt and the deficit is important. It is very bad. I know the CEO of J.P. Morgan Stanley has called that out too. But it's not something that can be fixed in a day. And representatives have different priorities than he does.
Oh, yeah.
Representatives really want to bring back pork. They want to bring back dollars to their districts. And so you've got to reconcile that. But this is the first step. We do want to codify Doge. We do want to eliminate fraud and waste. And that, but I feel like, or the Trump has felt like we have to do this, in a way that we can get it done. And Elon doesn't see that his priority is being done right away. And that's not how he's ever been able to function, right? Where his top priority gets tabled.
And Trump made lots of promises, right? Like balancing the budget was just one of like 20 or 50 or 100, like Trump's made lots of promises. So, he's got a lot of different promises to deliver on. He can't just focus on the one thing. So that it is what it is. But let's discuss the timeline a little bit. So Elon's looking for Trump. Everything seems fine. And then Elon Musk starts criticizing the big, beautiful bill. I'm actually hearing, I don't even know if I can confirm this yet because it's kind of unsubstantiated at this point. I'm actually hearing that Elon Musk got into like a fist fight with Scott Bessent. But that's from not what I would call a reliable source. It came from Steve Bannon. I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Yeah, fist fight. For him, a fist fight would be if guys are yelling at each other and close things.
Right.
And they, finally, like somebody pushes them away. Oh my gosh, fists were exchanged.
Oh gosh, yeah, right.
I mean, definitely, I think that's the thing is their approach is from a heated personal standpoint. He's taking it personally. It's a thing like, hey, we agree that these things are important, but we're not doing them right away. And Elon's taking that personally. And that's and anybody that says like, hey, you should not be taking this personally, you need to stand by Trump and that is, he's not used to getting that, shall we say.
Well, yeah, I mean, and as we go through this, I'll give you some of my insights. I come down on both sides. I think both sides have some merits, but so they get started with this big, beautiful bill. And then I'm getting the sense that Elon Musk is getting kind of like nudged out because of his lack of support in this one zone. Now, his time was coming to an end.
Not just his lack of support, his also publicly stating that lack of support.
I think he went on. Well, I can't remember. I think CBS. I don't remember where exactly he had it. He had a public interview and said, what did he say? He said Man, I can't remember. They said something like the bill can be big or beautiful, but not both. Something to that effect, right? Like,
Yeah.
but basically, he does. Yeah, he's definitely been publicly against Trump's big beautiful bill while serving under the pressure of Trump. And this is his primary initiative. And so, of course, I'm getting the sense that even though his time was coming to an end, that it was kind of like, maybe he could have had it extended, and Trump was like, "Nah, that's okay," right? Kind of like, let's just go on and get you.
Yeah.
But Trump did it gracefully, right? So Trump brings him into the Oval Office, and everything, at least outwardly, looks relatively calm. Trump is like, "Thank you so much for your hard work. Here's a bright, big, shiny key, to the castle anytime you want." You know, being
Yeah.
nice and stuff. Guys,
Yeah. He was definitely honored. He was
appreciate.
honored. Yeah.
Yeah,
He was
yeah,
not shamed. He was honored. Yeah.
yes, yes, and everything seemed fine, but of course, the next day, Elon Musk starts going to town, like, and Elon Musk starts dredging up all of these like old quotes from Trump saying, like, we need to balance the budget, and he's like, yeah, wise words. Where is this guy, and like all this nonsense, right? And so eventually Elon Musk says, just, I can't stand it anymore. The big beautiful bill is what did he say? He says, massive, outrageous, pork-filled congressional spending bill is an abomination, and anybody who voted for it should be ashamed of themselves. You did wrong. You did. And so that sets off this long chain of events, right? And of course, Trump again, pretty calm for Trump, says, man, I'm just disappointed that Elon Musk, was in my court. It's a shame. And Trump does mention that Elon Musk knew the inner workings of the bill better than anyone. I don't know if that's true or not. Elon claims no. But one thing I will say on this note is that this bill is 1,000+ pages, right? So, and it really what it was kind of tricked into Congress as like a I can't remember what they call the procedure, but basically they used it normally.
Reconciliation.
Yeah, well, so there were two tricks. One trick was they made it a reconciliation bill so that it only required 50 votes, or 51, 50 plus one. And then the other one was there was some kind of manager's something procedure where they could do it in less than 3 days. And so they really did like trick this bill in really fast, signed off on it in the middle of the night. And like even many of the people who did vote for it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, for example, said, I didn't get a chance to read it. If I had read it, I would have voted no. And I'm like, why would you vote for? I can't figure out why somebody would vote for something if they didn't actually read it. Like, why would that ever be the default? Like, if my default would be, if I don't read it, I'm
Yeah.
not going to vote for it, right? What if the bill
Absolutely.
said like we have to kill all geese? I mean, well, I might be in favor of that one, but you get what I'm saying. Like, what if the bill had said like you have to chop the heads off of every
Yeah,
chicken in the
vanilla
nation?
flavored ice cream is now banned. Like,
Right.
whoa, 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 whoa.
Right. You don't just sign stuff without reading them, and you would think that congressmen and the senators would be like the first people to know this, right? Contracts are serious. So yeah, it was tricked in. It was very fast. And while Elon Musk may have known the broad strokes, and yeah,
Has it been signed yet? I thought it was still in the Senate.
oh yeah, it's still in Senate. It's still in Senate.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah.
it was just
So,
just the House.
so that's part of the thing too. I think why she voted yes is because it wasn't like going right to the president's desk. And the Senate says they're going to try to. We'll see what happens reconciliation, but definitely the House was handled in a way that Elon didn't appreciate,
Right.
and with
And with good reason. Now, I'll be the first person to tell you, I am not a favor of these giant omnibus bills. I'm not a favor of anything that's like 1,000 pages. I'm not a favor of anything that happens this fast, and I'm not a favor of anything that gets voted in the middle of the night. I'm not in favor of, like, I could go on and on. And
no,
this
yeah, that's completely appropriate. Right?
yeah, and to be fair, in Elon's defense, this is a pork-filled bill. And the problem is our margins are so narrow that like you have to do it, right? Hey Jamie, how you doing? Welcome aboard. You have to, because like the problem is unless you start giving out favors, you're not going to get the majority because there's just going to be like 20 Republicans that are going to hold out for those favors, for that pork, for all these earmarks and whatnot. And then, they're just gonna that's the game, right? You have to
Yeah,
give each
I mean,
person a little.
especially because the margin of the house is so small,
Right.
right? If you're a linchpin, you can get a naval base in Kansas if they need to build a pass, right? So
Right. And so the next step of this was, Trump tried to remain calm for a little while. Eventually, Elon Musk, kept on making it slightly more personal each and every time he would make a tweet. And eventually Trump's like, I don't know what's going on. Mediocre Musk has gone crazy and stuff like that. Now, at this point, something intriguing happens. Elon Musk throughout this entire thing has just been claiming that the bill was overspending, right? Like that his problem with it was, like, I'm guessing, at least the way he communicates it, that he's worked on right. That he's worked on Doge for 4 months and that they're just not implementing any of his Doge stuff, right? Now, Trump is trying to reframe it a little bit as Elon's mad because it doesn't have the EV mandates in it. Now, I don't know how true that this is one of those things where it's like a he said, she said thing. It's impossible to know behind the veil what Elon's really angry at, but I could see him being angry at either or both, or even other stuff. There might be something personal that we're not even privy to, right? But like either way, it's kind of a narrative game where Elon's saying, I'm mad because it's overspending, and Trump's like, no, he's mad because it doesn't enrich him personally, right? And so it goes back and forth and back and forth. And then, eventually Trump's like, look, Elon Musk was wearing thin. I asked him to leave, and he he went crazy. He went crazy because he didn't have the EV mandates. And then, of course, Elon Musk is like, all right, well, then in that case, it's time to drop the big bombshell. Trump is in the Epstein files.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, what is going on here? Meanwhile, I'm like, what? You guys both go to timeout.
He walked back that accusation.
Yeah, I actually, I don't know. I think Elon Musk may have even deleted like many of the tweets. Like, I don't know how many of them he's.
Yeah, I mean, he was being petty, he wanted to get attention, and really, I think he didn't appreciate, like, when you have the ear of the president, when you can be an advisor to the president, that is really hallowed ground.
It's big currency.
And you should like, appreciate that you have something, and not burn it all to the ground the minute that your advice is not immediately acted upon. You maintain that, like, to be able to walk freely among the halls of the White House, to talk to any of his advisors, give input on stuff, is a really rarefied space, right? Now, yes, he donated a lot. He's a very smart guy, and he's a friend of the president. But that doesn't mean that this is the difference between that and actually having executive authority. He wasn't voted. If he wants executive authority, he needs to run for office and get it, or get appointed, get approved by the Senate. He didn't have that, but he was a very high level advisor, and he was taken very seriously. That's why I think, like, he was being petulant, and when Trump tried to, like, de-escalate or not act, he acted out. He wanted more attention. He wanted, and I think that petulance is really undermines his credibility, and will basically weaken, lower his priorities as far as the legislative priorities. It will only make it less urgent for us to address any of the things that he really cares about.
We'll see. It'll be interesting. So yeah, in the future, definitely. I don't know about this one bill. It'll be interesting how much he shifts the balance on this one bill. Because one of the things some of the congressmen that were saying is, like, the ones that weren't really in favor, like Rand Paul, and the ones who were trying to fight the bill in the beginning because it didn't save enough, and agreeably it didn't save enough. They're like, where was Elon Musk, 2 weeks ago when we were trying to put a stop to this nonsense, right? But of course, Elon Musk only says it, belatedly. And so it's kind of, now, one thing I don't understand why he's mad so fast, right? Like, if I were like, I'm trying to put myself in Elon's shoes, right? And let's say I took this all personally, right? And they're not putting my Doge stuff into play. I don't think I would get angry until like midterms. Like I don't think I'd get mad until like
Yes.
another year goes by and I don't see any progress. Then I'd be like, okay, it's obvious that they weren't ever going to try to do my stuff. That's when I would get angry. That's when I'd be like,
This is
where were
definitely
you
a
guys?
short fuse. This is
Right.
definitely a short fuse. And the fact that so much of the stuff that he found, Trump could simply use his executive authority and the authority of the Treasury Department, and the authority of
Well,
his role as
we'll see.
right. I mean, judges were fighting it, but I mean, obviously codifying it was something that could be done, but there was immediately it could be dealt with just through executive order, and
Right.
so I think that's why that if Trump hadn't issued those executive orders or wasn't doing that executive action, I can see him being upset. But being
Yeah.
upset that the legislature is not like snapping to it is like, whoa, 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 whoa. This is your first foray into government. You
Right.
are
And
new,
I
right?
think that shows too. Like it's obvious that like Elon Musk is naive when it comes to politics. Like and to be fair, like we said, Trump had some growing pains the first term too, but like Elon's definitely coming in thinking that there's some things that are going to happen, and like everybody else is like, no, that was never going to happen. Like, not yet. No way that was, no way everyone's just gonna be like, yeah, we'll just cut all these no way. No way is everybody going to like say, yeah, I'll just hack Social Security. Not in a million years. No way is somebody gonna be that courageous. Like, that's the kind of thing where you really have to have your feet
You have
underneath
to
you
wield
before you.
soft power over long periods of time. And
Right.
he's in his companies, if he says something, people jump,
Right.
right? And that's not politicians, even if they're fully on board with him and agree with him. All right, well, we're gonna have to start the process of building a consensus, changing hearts and minds, getting people on board with this to see how this meets their self-interest. That it's not something, while it's so self-evident to Musk, but it's something that needs to be sold. And
Right.
that's something that he hasn't had to sell ideas, especially over a long time, and
Right.
expects that, but having the ear of the president, being a high level advisor of the president, is too valuable, too important to burn that down just because some of your priorities are not being dealt with as
Absolutely.
immediately as
Now,
they would.
here's where I'll throw some bones Elon's way.
Okay.
I, while I think Elon is probably more in the wrong, right? Like he's definitely lost his temper faster, and he's
Yeah.
also less in the position to negotiate. That having been said, he is a valuable ally, right? And
Mhm.
to be fair, I will say this, like with all the pork that's in that big beautiful bill, you would think that if we're so willing to coddle each and every little congressman, that we're definitely willing to coddle our number one contributor, right? Like you would think that Trump would like make a phone call and privately say, "Hey, look, what's going on? How do I make this right? Trust me, give me a few weeks." Like you would think that Trump would be trying to I would at least trying to be to repair the relationship, to keep it sturdy. And now maybe Trump isn't the kind of person, to be fair, Trump is the kind of person where he's just like, I don't need to, so screw him.
Well, I think the congressional leadership should, because he did fund a lot of congressional and Senate races.
Them
They
too.
should be reaching out to him. But the thing is, the bill isn't signed yet. And that's why I felt like if he's unhappy, he should be voicing that privately to the people in power, to congressional leadership, to members of Donald Trump's staff. He should not be going public with this. That's
Why?
where I undermine. If he really wanted his changes, he should be doing that quietly
Hmm.
and not going publicly. That's
I
how
don't know.
politics works. If he really wanted to influence the bill, because the bill isn't signed yet.
I don't
They
know.
say this isn't a budget bill, right? It's still being tweaked in the Senate, and then it'll go back here, and the final bill will then have to be re-voted on by the House. It can still be influenced. He should be using that influence quietly, meeting with congressional leadership, saying, "Hey, I'm an advisor to the president. I'm Elon Musk. I'm going to fund so many of your races if you guys can just, pull back on this pork. He could sell that, but instead he undermined himself by just making his criticism public and saying like, "Hey, if I can go out and get public sentiment out of mine, or just talk on X bad about Trump, then that'll get me what I want." It's really, to me, it doesn't feel like he was being smart strategically. So I'm definitely feeling like Elon is the one who severed this relationship, is the one who's in the wrong, and is looking for anything, whether it furthers his cause or not, just to make Trump look bad, and that's petulance.
Yeah. I think that his tactics, like the things he's saying, are poor. I don't think that he should not be public, though. I think that part of his convincing is by convincing the will of the people, and that modifies the will of the congressman, because you have to, it's like you said, you have to be able to start changing hearts and minds. It can't just be congress people, because if you just try to change, hold on, let me get this out. Let me just get this out. If you only try to change the wills of the congressman, if you only go to them privately and say, hey, look, I feel like you should do this, they just don't have an appetite for it. But if you instead show that this is the track record of Republicans, we're supposed to be fiscal hawks. You show the words of Donald Trump, I think that was a good play. You show the words of like other Republicans, I think that's a good play. I don't think it's smart to start like being belligerent, but I do think that you have a right to voice your concern. I think he should be able to say publicly, hey, I'm feeling some kind of way right now. I worked 4 months and I'm not seeing anyone implement any of my cuts. I feel like that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. And I don't think he should have gone by saying this is an abomination and you guys are stupid and stuff like that. Like all that's noise. Like that was stupid, right? That was a dumb thing for him to do. But I do think that he should have respectfully, in the public eye, pointed out his, and that should be, and as long as he remained respectful, I don't think this even had to become a feud, right? Like if he had just said, with all due respect, I great respect for Trump and what he's doing. I don't think this is the right way to go about it. Big beautiful bill is too large. Nobody got a chance to read it. The way it was tricked into Senate wasn't into Congress wasn't okay, and it's just too much spending for my taste. I'd have to be out. If this is, I'm just out, and that would be fine. And Trump would say, "Well, I'm disappointed to hear that," but that would have been the end of it. In my mind, I think Trump would have probably just let it go and would have been like, "Look, he's still a valuable ally. There's no reason to like tangle horns if that's where he left it respectfully." But now, yeah, of course, he took it to the next level, and that's just that's what this like reclusive billionaire nonsense does to people. I guess they get to the point where they're just not. They don't do things like normal people do, I guess. But I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these people are neurodivergent. But I would agree. I would agree with you, Eddie. I would agree with you if it was an election year, right? I believe, going public, trying to change people's minds, going out there, maybe even in reaction if the bill had gotten signed and wasn't bad, maybe even gone public then. But when the bill still hasn't been signed by Trump, and he still has a close relationship to Trump, and I think going public was exactly, this not being an election year, that the way to make it your influence is to meet privately with congressmen who are working on the bill, Senate leadership, especially because it's in the Senate, and then wield your influence that way quietly. And then if the bill gets signed and all this bad stuff comes out, maybe publicly, trash it or something to voice your unhappiness with that. Or if it was an election year and you think getting people right, because now congressmen will be more responsive to that when they're up for election, and especially he's funding the elections, and people are gonna be voting on this quickly. They don't. No congressman feels like this big beautiful bill is going to matter to people when they go to vote 18 months from now.
Right. Yeah, and I will agree. I mean, I'll agree that if Elon's goal was to maintain his influence politically, he's just squandered all that. He's basically just thrown that out. Now, for this one bill, I think the only way that he can stop it is prior to the bill being signed. Right? Like otherwise, it's not gonna. It's just gonna go right through because that's gonna be the game. But yeah, now another claim that Elon Musk has made, which I don't know if it's true or not. Like we'd have to kind of assess this. He claims, of course, as part of this feud, that if it weren't for him, that Donald Trump wouldn't have been elected, that the House would have been lost to the Democrats, and that the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. I don't know if that's true. I think, don't get me wrong, because I appreciate Elon Musk's role. Like he definitely played a part, but it's so hard to quantify it, right? Like it's just impossible.
It's an unknown question. Yeah.
You just can't know like exactly how many votes you got somebody. You just can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where he's getting that from. I mean, don't you put a lot of money into
it. Everybody wants to claim credit. Everybody wants to claim credit, right? So in the same way everybody had their theories about why the Democrats lost, everybody wants to claim credit. Really, I think it was common mansplaining that put the Republicans
I thought it was us, right? We did all the hard. Elon Musk Jamie says, I think they're going to use some of Elon's ideas, but not now for a while. Right now, there's bigger. See, this is what I'm true. If there's one thing that I'm really disappointed about, is Elon Musk is the closest thing that our society had, like not a politician, to a hero, basically. Like, and he had all these things going for him, and he's basically he systematically he has like torpedoed himself. He's like keeps shooting himself in the foot everywhere he goes because like he's got these great companies, then he's like, screw marketing, like, and then people just drift away. And he's got this, this political connection. He's like, well, screw that guy too. And he's like, drift away. And he had all these connections, he's got gifts and ability and luck that I would, kill to get. Like this and stuff that nobody else gets the ability that Elon, no one else gets the opportunities that he gets. No one else has the money. No one else has the president's ear. And he's just like, like.
Well, Elon will not like it if I say this, but there is a quotient called social intelligence.
Yeah.
Even it said because of his Asperger's or his thing, that it's difficult for him sometimes to recognize or at least act upon it, right?
Right.
And people that are highly social intelligent tend to be the ones that succeed in politics.
Yeah.
And so you have people that are highly socially intelligent coming up with somebody who's got a lot of raw scientific STEM intelligence, a lot of actionable intelligence, and a strong work ethic and things like that. But his social, when it comes to influencing people with social intelligence, you need to, be on their level. And when you interact with them and they see what they see with Elon is that he's less intelligent socially than they are.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Okay, and so it's sort of like the kid at the table who's a little bit slow. Even if he's brilliant in some of the other areas, it's like, all right, you don't get the jokes, and they don't really know how to interact with him. I think he would say that that's a weakness of his, and so he needs to just acknowledge that social intelligence is not his forte, and this is an area that requires a lot of that. He needs an advisor. He needs somebody that he will trust, somebody that has his ear, who can help guide him when it comes to social intelligence.
Right.
Maybe common mansplaining is who.
Yeah, he should have called us, really. And and the thing is he had an advisor, and that advisor was President Trump. Like nobody could have guided him better, right? You see him in the Oval Office meetings. Trump like kind of helps him out with the wording of some things and like how to deliver and stuff like that. And and he squandered it. And now of course it's gotten to the point where Trump is like, well, the easiest way we're going to save money is to just cancel all of his contracts and subsidies. And then Elon Musk is like, well, good, then we'll just start decommissioning Dragon Capsule, which is the only place. Which, all right, first of all, again, in Elon's defense, Trump is being wholly inaccurate when he says that the fastest way to save money is to cancel those subsidies. That is not true. The truth is, even if he canceled all of Elon's contracts, he would have to find like another military or tech contractor to put military satellites into space. He would have to find another space contractor to get astronauts to and from the space station. He would, and probably for greater money than Elon charges, probably. But you know, this is just a game now. It like at this point, they're just like, rah, rah,
Who
rah.
can be more spiteful? Who can be more spiteful? Who can be more petty? And ultimately, this is why I'm not super worked up about it. I think it's lesson learned because I think ultimately they're going to reconcile. I think this is like a breakup, like a couple that has gets in a fight and you think, oh, it's all done, and then they make up, and you're like, oh. So I mean, because Elon, I think will realize the Democrats are not an answer. They're not going to give him what he wants. That the Republican Party, right, is a coalition. And we have to compromise within our political parties here in America. It's not a perfect, you're not going to get everything the way you want, even though it seems to him this is the most important issue and this is how you do it and these are the things. Politics and Republican politics in a republic have to require a lot of social intelligence and a lot of courage. And he can help give them that courage by saying, I will fund your campaigns next year in an election year. But right now, he's going to have to use social intelligence if he wants to have influence.
Yeah, I hope they make it. It's tough when he goes that big. It's so hard to get it's so hard to get someone like Elon Musk to say, I was wrong. I was flying off the handle. I really should just take a step back. I apologize for that's a tough thing to it's hard for normal everyday people to say, I screwed up. I got angry too fast. That's a hard thing to admit for your everyday socially intelligent person. And it's really hard for someone who's autistic and Elon, let's be honest, he basically has FU money. He doesn't need to. He could just never apologize to anyone ever in life. That's, to be fair, that's his prerogative. Now, I hope he doesn't live his life that way. I truly hope better for him, but he really could. He could just never apologize. He doesn't have to make up. And Trump doesn't have to either, right? Elon's got FU money, Trump's got FU power, and neither of them actually have to get back together. And so that's why I'm not optimistic about. I hope it happens. I really do. But
I think it would show a lot of character on Elon's part and growth.
Yeah.
Right. And and recognition that it's too important to be able to have a close relationship, have a key to the White House, for him to burn it down at frustrations. I don't know if, for those of you, I lived in California during the Arnold Schwarzenegger governorship.
Right? The governator.
Right. And so maybe people in the rest of the country didn't follow it. I know he's a celebrity, and so they followed it. But he came in and really wanted to sort of help reform and bring California back to some Republican aims, some fiscal discipline, some things like that. And was hit with a legislature that was not going to help him do that. Had a lot of power. So in California, you can then take laws, take things directly to people, and people can vote on them, referendums, and so that's what he tried to do. And essentially, when he wasn't able to be successful with that, he sort of became disillusioned, that, hey, getting stuff done in government is really hard, right? And it's not even when you feel like you put in a lot of effort and you care, and you're like, we've done things right, and this is how we can solve a problem. And the other people will just stop you for petty reasons. Sometimes they just don't want you to succeed.
Right.
And so it reminds me a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was kind of used to being treated in a certain way that a celebrity will be treated, and expected, to get things being done in a quick manner immediately as soon as he asked for them. Hopefully, I think Elon can get back there, can regain his influence, but it's going to require humility on his part
Yep.
and realize money and intelligence must comes after power,
Yeah.
and being close to power, having money and intelligence, being close to power is the best place to be.
Yeah.
And even if not everything goes 100% your way, it's still that you can have any kind of positive influence is too important.
Yeah. 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 And I hope he does. I mean, yeah, humility is a hard thing to find for billionaires. It's a hard thing to find for autistic people, and it's a hard thing to find. But
Yeah, for
I
common
really do.
men, and everyone struggles.
Right.
There's always going to be something in everyone's life that they're going to find really hard to forgive. But I
Now,
hope that this is not something that they are not able to get over. I think they'll get back.
yeah, I do too. I hope so. I mean, I think Elon Musk ultimately, whether he's socially intelligent, I hope he's technically intelligent enough to realize that if his faith rests in Democrats, he's just going to be in trouble. He's just not going to get. So I think that's what will ultimately get him back in the graces. Hopefully. But one thing I wanted to talk about is really quickly is the big beautiful bill itself, because one of the claims here is that one of the things that they're both trying to reframe the narrative on is Elon Musk is saying that the bill is terrible for spending. It's going to cost us $1 million. Trump, of course, his message has always been that it's going to save, trillions of dollars. And I wanted to kind of discuss what it actually is going to do so that people understand, because it both, of course, are using anytime a bill like this comes up, both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, or Elon or Trump, are going to use language that's a little bit misleading, because they're just going to use a language that kind of pushes you in their arena or whatever. So I want to try to be as clear as I can. It's not going to be easy. When Trump says this is going to save lots of money, that's not technically correct, because you can't save money. All right, in the most generic sense, in any business, in any bill, in any financial situation, there's two sides, right? There's money coming in and there's money going out, right? There's the amount of money that you make and the amount of money that you spend, right? Now, the big beautiful bill does both of those things, right? It makes money, it spends money, it also saves money. So it is accurate to say that it saves money, but it saves money in some sections and spends more in others. So it's not really accurate to say like the bill
It's
is a
not a
total.
net savings. It's not a
Right.
net savings.
Right. Now, in the abstract, if you were to think of two different worlds, one with the big beautiful bill passed and one with the big beautiful bill not passed, it is likely that you would have more money if the big beautiful bill were not passed, right? And so the concept that it saves lots and lots of money is a misleading one. Now, however, Trump is also including other parts of his fiscal policy when he says that. So Trump is also talking about the money that he makes off of tariffs, which goes toward that. He's also talking about something called and what we call an economic multiplier, right? So a lot of the programs in that bill are growth multipliers. So in other words, and this is something, believe it or not, is not very conservative. It's more of a liberal concept. It's kind of a Keynesian concept where you put a program in play, and that program itself, while costing money, loops money back around and circulates it so that everybody else spends it back with you, and then you tax it again, and then they spend it again, and it goes in circles. And what happens is that $1 gets passed around several times, and so it's that $1 is actually more active than it would be if you had just saved the dollar, right? And this is something that people do in finance too, where they make their money really active. They make it work for them, right? And so what Trump's whole financial concept is kind of outside the box, because he thinks of America as like it's got all these raw resources and you can tap them and you can make more money off of those, although it takes more money going in the beginning, right? And so it's really complex. So, but I don't want you to think that Trump's lying. He's just shortcutting, right? And the same thing goes for Elon. He also isn't lying. He's just telling you the truth in a way that makes it look good for him, right? So they're both telling the truth in a weird way.
They're both spinning. Yeah.
Right. So the big beautiful bill, I don't know if it's going to make us lots of money in the future. That just remains to be seen. But there are parts of it that I think are overspent, plenty of it. Like there's plenty of parts that I like. I think the military spending in the big beautiful bill is heavy, and I'm a military guy, right? I think that's still a heavy cost. I think they're asking for too much, but that's just me. I don't know what
Well,
you.
yeah,
I'd love to hear what you guys think.
right. Well, I think this isn't really supposedly a budget. This isn't like the last bill that will ever be done,
Right.
right? That affects spending. So that I think that's kind of making it too dramatic. Like if this passes, we can't save money, we can't balance the budget at all. No,
Yeah.
after this passes, you can have another bill that's dedicated towards balancing the budget, cutting entitlements, and doing that, and
So how
separate that
likely
and
is
make
that?
make that a different battle that you're fighting than these battles you're fighting in the big
Right.
beautiful bill.
Now, how likely is that though? Just out of curiosity, what do you think? Like, if you had to put a percentage on it,
Will
like,
there be another bill?
what
This
is the
is what
likelihood?
Congress does.
Well, what is the likelihood that we have a balanced budget by the end of Trump's term?
Ooh, you're right. I think it's 1 in 3.
Yeah, it's a shot. It's not
But
gone. It's not nothing.
yeah,
You know,
right.
1 is pretty good.
And I think though, this should be a secondary. The Republicans shouldn't be scared of this, but
Right.
any talk about potential recession also can spook Republicans, right? That's
Right.
how George W. Bush, who was at 90% approval, the first George Bush, the first George Bush was at 90% approval rating after the midterms, right?
Right.
When the Iraq War lost, right, was because there was a recession, and he got a third party candidate run against him,
Right.
Ross Perot. And
So
so
also a fiscal
they sort of overact for recessions, right? Recessions are a time for Keynesian spending, but I don't think we're in them. I don't think we should really, obviously there's going to be anecdotal things of people struggling with the economy, but I think the economy is strong enough to handle some cuts.
Yeah.
Right? The government doesn't need to be overspending, and I think the time to do that. Obviously, the big beautiful bill, but to do another bill after that can take on maybe entitlements, maybe Democrat funding more directly, Democrat priorities more directly, and lower the funding for those, shall we say, and see if we can get there. It's going to be, I can't guarantee that it won't work, but I feel confident the Republicans will at least try to do that. At least try and put a thing down. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope so. I hope I mean, yeah, well, if it is even 1 in 3, that's pretty good. Like that's better. That's a better chance than we've had since Newt Gingrich, basically.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the Democrats had zero interest in even trying. So
yeah.
I think the Republicans at least will try. I think there's 1 in 3 chance that they succeed, but I think they'll at least try.
That'd be nice. I mean, I'd love it. Now, I'm not optimistic because I just don't think the appetite's there. It's like you said. I mean, the problem is, and this is so that people out there understand. And before I go to that, just understand that I think this big beautiful bill, while I'm not crazy about the structure and the way it's passed and all the other stuff, I think it does need to pass overall. I think it's probably better on than off. Just because of its border security and for a couple of other big things that it does that it addresses, but it delivers on lots of Trump's promises. So I mean, I think he has to do it, whether the manner in which it's done is good or not. But I think that after that's through, like for people to understand it, there's just you can't balance the budget without like really cutting into mandatory spending, and they have to do it, and nobody's going to do it. They're just going to look right through them. And I hope that Doge they say that Doge is continuing without Elon Musk, right? So I hope that that's true. I hope that program keeps going and keeps on, worming its way through the bureaucracy. And even if it cuts a couple billion here and there, billion here, billion there, pretty soon you're talking real money, right?
Well, I mean, yeah, as long as we just don't have bills, right, with nobody's name on them, like
Right.
spending billions of dollars into the ether to who knows who, right? So it's like, hey, let's just know where the money's going. Let's have it be signed off, and let's have the executive branch be run by the president, right?
That's a
The
novel thought.
executive branch and find if those can find the ways where people are circumventing and trying to get around that, right? And bring back the power to the presidency. I think that will give us a closer chance to real savings.
Yeah, I hope so. I really do. And it gets for those of you guys out there who've watched the show for a while, you know that I am a big fiscal hawk. Like I just do not like extra spending. I mean, I don't even like extra spending on the military, and I think the military is basically almost the only thing the government should be spending on. Like, it's definitely the only big thing the government should spend on.
The post office.
Yeah, the post office. I mean, the post office won't be big compared to the military. But yeah, military, post office, interstate commerce is really not much. It's really not much the government's supposed to. Yeah, I know, and I know I'm a cheap guy. I know it. But
well, they've got to buy robes for all their judges, right?
right, right.
We provide
And, maybe at the local level we can institute some of those programs. But now the last thing I want to talk about is the claim that Trump is on the Epstein files. This is kind of a spicy take. Now, I don't think he's on it. That's just me, or like in any serious context. I get the sense that they would be using that against him, like all 10 years of his political career, right? Like, wouldn't that have been the first thing that they would have brought up? I don't think he's it. Maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong.
Everybody high level in New York had at least touched, the pictures of them together
like,
at parties with their wives and stuff.
Right.
At least had some association. Now, the Epstein files are those that committed unlawful sexual
right
acts
that actually went to the island and
or wherever.
Yeah.
And so we'll see about that. There's a lot of now the real journalists that have done the work already have the Epstein list out there.
Right.
And the ones I found. And Donald Trump's not on it.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Right. And so, but you can easily shade him because he was, he was there at parties or public functions. There are pictures of them together and things like that. Donald Trump obviously has, with his 3 marriages and different periods, has a reputation of not being exactly a monk when it comes to women, a bit of a womanizer. So any of those claims are going to be right. Trump also lives in this what they call the Mike Tyson zone. Are you familiar with the Mike Tyson zone?
No, hit me with it.
So the Mike Tyson zone was a theory postulated by Bill Simmons. Whenever you hear anything about Mike Tyson, no matter how crazy, your first instinct is that it would be real, right?
Fair enough.
Right? Have you heard like Mike Tyson just punched Vladimir Putin in the face, and you'd be like,
"You're like, wait."
Like your first instinct is that like obviously this happened because he's such a character.
Is he okay?
And then later you have to research to see that it did happen. Trump is so out there. Any of the first story that comes out, even if it's completely fake news, it gains traction because you're like, okay, I can see that happening. Like pretty much, he lives in this world where anything is possible, and but then you have to show evidence. And so, being able to make a claim like that without evidence, without being able to show evidence, and I think that's why he's walked it back. So certainly there's association. Anybody that like I went to high school with that has ever done anything inappropriate. If you here's a picture of them associated together. I'm like, you can't label people by their associations.
Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that because it bothers me when like Trump will like have dinner with Kanye West or something like that, and they're like, Trump had dinner with Kanye West. I'm like, so he didn't become Kanye West. He just had dinner with him. You know, like I'm actually thankful that, you know, like as common mansplaining becomes the premier media establishment, I'm just thankful that we're not there yet. And so like I'm not yet assailed for all of the people that I have associations with, you know, like, because it really shouldn't matter, you know, like if I have a breakfast with a, you know, with one guy and talk to somebody else for dinner, like that's those aren't me, right? They're not me.
Yeah.
If I start acting like they do, okay, then you have something. But until then, you know, like if I'll let you know, like everybody in the world probably knows at least one racist, right? Like we all know one. I'm not one myself, you know, but I know one. Like it's not that you can't do that. It doesn't, like, humans don't, like, their traits don't sift over by osmosis. That's not how it works, right? So, but anyway,
and refusing to talk, or we're not ones who will refuse to talk to people. I mean, we've said we will not go on Joe Rogan, you know, unless he asks us to go.
Yeah.
You know, I think.
Right.
We're willing to talk to people, and I don't think that you can claim someone is like. There was a question asked. Do you know about the group Mumford and Sons?
No, say it again.
The musical group Mumford and Sons.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm actually going to see them. They're coming to North Carolina in July. I got tickets.
Nice.
So a member of their band has left the band, all because he liked a story by a conservative. Right. This was in 2021, 2022, when there was sort of woke hysteria or hysteria kind of thing. He was in the White House recently and asked a question to Pam Bondi. So he's, I think, decided to lean into being more political and in his right wing things. But there's stuff, any type of association, you like something or you're around somebody, people want to, you know, pile all that baggage on you, and that's not right. That's not really fair.
Of course, yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, and it's like, yeah. Anyway, guys, that's what I had for you this week. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate your viewership, and we're in the works. Hopefully, our marketing will have us online, and we'll get some greater visibility by the end of the week. That's what I'm praying for, anyway. But keep us in your prayers, and you know, if you do see Joe Rogan, let him know that we would accept, you know,
right.
Just, you know, graciously.
That's true. I mean, my last thing I would be, the elites are happy to have Trump and Elon feuding.
Yes.
This is a breakup of a power couple that was something that they don't really have on their side. Of people that want to undermine the narrative of the elites and have the power and the money and the intelligence to do so. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's concerted efforts to try to drive a wedge between these two. And that's why I hope they overcome it, because this just feeds into what the elites want, and we'll just weaken our country and weaken our administration. So please be humble. Please get back together, guys, for the common man.
That's right. Well, see you next time on Common Mansplaining.